You're with Capetalk.
This is John Matham on Afternoon Drive.
22 minutes past 4 o'clock. The book review. The thriller is by JP Delaney. He is a British thriller writer, and he specializes in what one might call the unreliable narrator genre. Somebody's telling a story, but you have no idea whether the story they are telling you has a lot of truth, a little bit of truth, or is an absolute mishmash of lies. His previous books are The Girl Before, Believe Me, The Perfect Wife, and Playing Nice, and his latest, My Darling Daughter, is very much in the same line as those previous ones. Susie Jukes is contacted out of the blue by somebody who says, did you give up a child for adoption 15 years ago? If you did, I am that child, and I am desperately unhappy. And she did. She was, at the time, involved with a musician. They were involved in sex, drugs, and rock and roll. She's still involved with that musician, and things have quietened down a bit in their lives. And she regrets deeply having given Anna up for adoption. And so, despite warnings from friends and her husband, and despite knowing that Anna's adoptive parents want her to have absolutely nothing to do with her birth mother, she decides to get in touch, and things kind of spiral out of control. The story is told from the different viewpoints of Susan and the husband Gabe, and from Anna, and slowly one begins to realize that Anna's adoptive parents or maybe not as bad, and maybe Anna's not as angelic as she makes out to be, and there is quite a dramatic conclusion. It really does keep the attention going, and as you try to work out who's telling the truth, who's lying, everybody's lying. How much are they lying? Everybody's got a kernel of truth in what they're saying, and you try to work out who's on the side of right and who is on the side of wrong. That's My Darling Daughter by JP Delaney. Pippa spoke to Ron Irwin probably a couple of months ago about his second and latest book called My Side of the Ocean. And Ron is an American academic, and he has been living and working in Cape Town for quite a while now. His first novel was Flatwater Tuesday, which told the story of the very competitive rowing environment on American campuses, and I really, really liked that book. I equally liked this follow-up, My Side of the Ocean, which is set mostly in South Africa, although it does have American elements. And the central character is a really well-known, highly accomplished American artist called Stella. She lives on one of the rocks of Buckhoven. She's got a lacquer cottage there, and she lives a life which is not bad at all. She's highly acclaimed. People want to buy, people want her to exhibit, and things are just, her husband is back in the US. He wants them to leave South Africa. He's an investment analyst, and he reckons all the evidence is that South Africa is bust, so let's get out of there while we can. She likes it here. She goes for a swim, as she does often, and she and a surfer meet in dramatic circumstances because they are tracked by a great white shark. So close that she looks it in the eye, and Ron Irwin's description of that great white shark's eye is one of the great pleasures of the book, the way he writes about marine life, writes about the sea, writes about nature. There is an instant attraction between Ben, the surfer, who paints trawlers for a living, and the artist Stella. And there are other characters as well. There's a Malawian who becomes an important part of the story. And Irwin characterizes all of them beautifully, and there are lots of lovely little email exchanges between academic colleagues and so on, and there's a big tongue in the cheek about some of the satirical aspects of academic life. And the feelings that grow between Stella and Ben are very real, very powerfully painted, very easy to fall into. And it's a moody book. It's a book with an enormous amount of heart about Cape Town, about great whites, about the sea, and about some of the complex social problems that this country has. And it handles all of those things very, very deftly indeed. It is a very good read, My Side of the Ocean by Ron Irwin. And then the non-fiction book is called The Making of the Modern Middle East, A Personal History by Jeremy Bowen, who has been reporting on the Middle East for close to 30 years now. He's the BBC's Middle East editor at the moment. And this is, he obviously goes back to the founding of Israel, 1948, the Balfour Declaration, for which he doesn't have a great deal of affection or admiration. But mostly he's telling the story as an observer of that story between sort of 1990 and the present. And I suspect for some people who have a really, really passionate about this, whether you're on the Palestinian side or the Israeli side, if you have no desire to see the other person's point of view at all, then you're probably going to be annoyed by this book, because inasmuch as one can be objective and tell both sides of a story, he does it in this book. But he concentrates more on the people than on the politics. Obviously, the people are functioning, they are living, they are dying in a field which is governed by the politics, not just of Israel and Palestine, but the politics of the region. And it's a book that is filled with a kind of despair, that there doesn't seem to be any prospect out of this, that neither side has the kind of leadership that will allow the very difficult and complex compromises that are going to have to be made in order for there to be some kind of sustained peace and justice in that part of the world. So I found it fascinating background to a story that I keep a close eye on. The Making of the Modern Middle East, A Personal History by the BBC's Middle East editor, Jeremy Bowen.